Nothing like snow. First snow of 2025. And hummingbirds.
Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, not that most of you know, but I've been not working on clocks for about 3 months. About a month and a half, 2 months worth. I got a cold, and so did my dad and my brother, and man, it drug on. Anyway, I'm back now, and I have in my opinion, a fantastic clock to work on. It's related to that one, or at least it's made by the same company. Let me show you this anniversary clock that I got. So this is a clock I got. Underneath, just down below here, it looks like it says KC Company, Germany. This here clock is a 1906 clock, the best I can see looking in the books of the plates for clocks. And it's really difficult to find this one because there's so many and they're just off by a little bit, so you have to go to the next picture, which I'll show you. But what's so unique about this clock is the pendulum. I've been dying to get one that has a pendulum like this, and just by luck, GW, they have 2 sites, and the one that had this clock had free shipping, and it lasted for about a week. And I think as soon as they put this clock on is when that happened. This clock was listed for $25. What a steal. Anyway, I've been dying for one with a pendulum like this. Technically speaking, I guess I know nothing about these clocks. I do know you turn this and it adjusts the weights evidently in and out, so that way you can adjust the speed to the clock. But like I say, I've been dying for one with a pendulum like this. I figured I could never afford them, and a little bit later I'll show you on eBay what these things are selling for. It seems to me the highest one was a little over $600, but just because they put a high price on there doesn't mean they're going to sell it, because it's still there, I do believe. But they aren't cheap. You don't just buy these for 25 bucks. The dial itself's a little bit dirty, and we do have corrosion on the plate. It's not that shiny brass. And this here, I'm not sure if something got on there or what, but I would say so. In which I'm going to clean this all up so it's new looking again. Fancy underneath here. What's unique about this clock too, I've discovered, which I've never seen it on a clock before. Hopefully you can maybe get a shine a better light on there. This here is so you can, if you need to adjust evidently the evenness of the tick-tock of this thing, it's got a little bit of scale there, and this here is a pointer to where you can adjust it very minimal to get your little bit more even tick-tocks to this, which obviously this doesn't have a tick-tock sound to it, but it's getting it in beat easier evidently. This here clock also happened to have the wire to it, the spring wire that goes down to the pendulum, and this here adjusts up and down, so possibly if you move this clock around, it would possibly, if you move this clock around, this would hold down on the pendulum and hopefully keep it from breaking. It almost surprises me unless someone brought it in and GW didn't mess with the clock, because normally they don't. But you turn this dial here and you can adjust this up and down, which I'm going to put it up all the way. I want to hook the pendulum on here and see if it even runs or not. But it's nice to have that block there. And it's nice to have the whole wire. I have no idea if this is even wound or not. I don't know the way yet. Okay, I just tested it and I got 2 clicks out of it. What size key is this one? Nope. This one's taking a number 7 key, and I could tell by looking at this, it's had a little bit sloppier key used on it before, because it's starting to, the edges are starting to bend over, but the number 7 isn't too tight or too loose, so I'm happy with that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let this thing run a little bit and see if I need to do anything or not. I will admit I'd like to clean this up. I am going to oil it, so we are going to have to take the dial off in order to oil both sides of the plate. But that's only if we're going to not do anything to this clock besides oil it. If it needs clean, then we're going to take it all apart, which once you get the dial off, it's pretty much self-explanatory. And obviously, not that these have very many gears, but you want to take a picture of the gears so you can get them back into place if you haven't worked on a clock before. I also got these in. These are broaches. These are smoothing broaches, not cutting broaches. Very expensive. These have been on order for about 5 months, I'd say, maybe a little longer. They're not cheap. This is, what the heck was it? $33. So sometimes it's not cheap to work on clocks, but sometimes you need something to help you out to work on the clocks. And this here, once the movement's clean and you use a toothpick through it and whatnot, it might be good to run a smoothing broach through just to make sure you're reducing your friction, because these gears, especially on this type of clock, anniversary clock, don't need any friction. It needs to be able to, we'll say, tick smoothly. And so let me look at the time on this thing, time it for half an hour, and see if that pendulum, number 1, keeps going, and see if it keeps correct time. So on here, this disc here has an F on one side and an S on the other side, which is telling you faster if you need to make the clock speed up, or S for slower to slow the clock down. This here probably takes a special tool. It looks like it's got a square end on it to be able to turn it, which if you were careful enough, you could probably use needle nose pliers to turn it to either speed it up or slow it down. This clock is still ticking, I will admit. Let me show you. This here coming up that goes into the clip that goes down to the wire, it was sitting clear over here, and I had to put it back into the hole. And then also I noticed it needed to be adjusted so it could come further over in order to get it to click inside. And so I had to adjust the top here, and then I had to actually pull we have a fork plate right here. I actually had to pull that this way a little bit to get a little bit better bend because I couldn't really adjust it here. This is a fine tuning adjustment, and you have to adjust this to get it as close as possible. So since I adjusted that, the clock has been running. So what I plan on doing is, because this clock runs, like I told you, I'm not going to really tear it apart, but I am going to take off the hands and the dial so I can get into the front plate and actually oil it, and I'll oil the back plate too. So that way the clock has been oiled, and then the base only I'm going to clean. So this dead looking brass here, you can't really tell it's brass. It does have the beautiful antique look to it, but why not make this clock shine as much as possible, or at least I want it to. And then I don't know what kind of cleaner they used on the plate itself, but I'm going to clean that up a bit. And especially on the outside, I plan on using this. This is made for your anniversary clocks or brass if you want to shine it up. And that's what I'm going to do, or that's why I bought this in the first place, is there's a lot of these clocks, they tarnish with age, and I want this thing to, let's say, look new again. Let me show you in the book to where I found, let's say, the age of this clock. Looking in this book here, in which this is almost the Bible you need when you work on these clocks, because when it comes to making a new spring wire for it, you need to get the blocks in place properly, otherwise it'll either not run, be too long, or whatever. So like I say in this book here, it shows quite a few different Gustav Becker clock movements. You need to find one that has the same amount of holes in the same places pretty much. Mine has the two emblems here, and to find one with the right amount of holes and that kind of stuff was difficult in my opinion. But they do have, I'm going to call them serial numbers, or numbers of how many clocks I made. I don't know for sure what those are. This one here is the one that comes the closest to the one I have. And on these, up in the corner, they tell you the age of that clock or plate, and this one says 1906. But like I say, everything pretty much matches up, and also this here has that number there, and let me show you the number on there. It's the one that comes the closest also. Down here it says this one has a disk pendulum, or it came with a 4-ball pendulum. Here on the back of my clock, the last number, mercy, is a 859. And faintly down here says Germany. Now in the book, I didn't find one that says Germany down there, but the two emblems are right. All my holes that I could find are right. And so that's the best I can do coming up with a date on this clock. So carefully lift this up and take the pendulum bob off. And this here, it has screws here on the plate, but to get the front plate off, it does have, or the dial, it does have taper pins. This is 1, 2, 3 taper pins, which is about normal. and we also have a taper pin here. And you should pay attention, especially when you're starting to take it apart. This here has a washer on top, which is, what do they call it? Convex? It's not concave unless you turn it around. Anyway, it's got a taper pin and as you go taking the plates off, pay attention because there might be a spring in there that's pushing on the hands to keep the hands from just going willy-nilly or falling down or whatever. You never know, and they're usually really small, so pay attention to that. Okay, this is pulling clear out now, so that's, you gotta watch that a little bit. That's gonna mess up your hands possibly. When you go to put them back on, you have to make sure they're back where they're supposed to be. This one's just not coming off. So this is actually flat on this side and then bubbled up, so that way I've never seen one like that. That way it holds the hands out tighter, I guess. See if we can get this minute hand off. I might have to get my hand puller. Let's just check this out. See, it's not even, we'll say, connected at the moment inside because it's popped out. And this one's pressure fitted on, and if you had to tighten it, you'd just squeeze those together just a little bit to tighten it. Normally you don't have to deal with that. So it's got 1, 2, and I'm sure another one over here, 3 screws to get this off. There might even be 4. I didn't turn it upside down. And I don't know if you have to take them all the way out or not. You're here to learn with me. And the reason why I'm actually taking this off, I probably don't normally have to if I was going to take off the movement only, because of the face. Shouldn't have to come off, but it might have to. Like I say, we'll find out as soon as I get this off. I don't know if these screws are, let's call them pins, so it'll come off, or if I actually have to unscrew it all the way. I took them out all the way. You see a little bit of corrosion there when possibly this thing was being cleaned. I would like to clean this up, I will admit. It might not, let's say, totally match the clock because this is shinier, but in so many words, this here can fade in the background because this is the front of the clock and you want it to look, I think, look shinier. It does have nice little detail around there. Like I say, at the lower part, that could be, I can't believe it, but that could be oil. But if this is taken to a professional, we'll say, it shouldn't have excess oil. So let's take the movement off. It's got these thumb screws down here on both sides. This here feels like a porcelain dial, so I should be able to clean up that yellowish gunk or whatever's on here easily, and the numbers shouldn't come off. Down below there you can see what this clock says. There's a fancy detail onto the plate, in which it's got 2 screws holding it into place. So we're going to go ahead and take the dial off so we can oil the front of the movement. Like I say, we have those taper pins here. Surprisingly, it wasn't on very much. So like I say, you got to be careful with this stuff here. Surprisingly, it's not coming up. Anyway, this here is actually coated with oil. So we might just take a tissue and wipe that off and then go ahead and oil it. So that very well could be oil all over the ring that goes around the dial. And here I'm going to go ahead, loosen this and put this down to help protect our spring wire. It's already fallen out of place. It's got a groove. There we go. Put that down, just let it drop onto the block. So I'm going to set this aside for now. And let's see about cleaning this up. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And this. Like I said, I've never had one of these, so I don't know what this is for, unless that's a guide to help you center the pendulum or something. I have no idea. Below here, you take those off, take that off, and it'll come off so it'll be easier to clean. You notice this doesn't have any feet. The stand, I guess we'll call it, was difficult to get out. It's got inside there's a layer of brass underneath this brass, and then it looks like wood or something in there. And actually, taking this off, it's what's holding it together. That plate's coming out. Which this is a first for me. I've never seen such a thing. And it's got a cardboard disc. And another cardboard disc. And another cardboard disc. And then here's a steel plate. You say it's amazing. I've never seen such a thing. And this looks like a steel plate too, because obviously it's got a steel color to it. So I guess when I clean this part, I'm going to have to be kind of careful with it. It might be brass with steel. Let's see. Actually, it fell out too. So this is just a finish, brass finish over the steel. And then I would say this is all brass. So this makes it a little simpler. I can do a light cleaning on this and then do my normal cleaning on there. Now what I plan on doing, obviously for the upper plate, I don't need that much cleaning, but I'm going to use this mag and aluminum polish. It seems to clean quite well. I've found that this doesn't work that well if it's got a finish on it, and realistically I'm not trying to get clear down to the brass, so this might be best on the top plate. On the bottom plate I can test that, but normally you need something that has a little more grit to it, I guess, and this does a fantastic job when it comes to putting a shine on things. It's a lot more expensive, but it works. And I don't want to sound lazy, but I am. I don't want to spend hours trying to get that finish back. And yeah, I might spend maybe a whole hour. It might only take 15 minutes to clean that. But just the same, this here does it faster. If I need to put a shine on anything, like I say, that's what I got this for, and I got the high gloss, so that way it's the anniversary clock stands out like it should. I already did that real quick. Let's do this. Some of your corrosion might not come out, like there's a spot there. Possibly if you work on it long enough it might come out. There's another spot there. This gives you an idea of realistically how fast this cleans up with the proper cleaners. I haven't tried the mothers on this one. I did try it on the other plate as I showed you, and I did put a wax coating on it. This here, because when this dries, you put it on, get it taken off, and then the shell that's on there will turn to a shell, and so that way the fingerprints don't show up as easily, I guess we'll say, because you're not tarnishing it. This has a protective shell. You need to have a clean rag. You don't want that little bit of black, because that little bit of black just drags it back on there. And that black is that tarnish coming off. You can see how, for what little I've worked on it, that doesn't look bad. It can use a little bit more, but once you clean it, maybe you want to do it one more time with obviously a clean rag again, and get the rest of that off of there so it has a full shine compared to this is what it looked like before. Doesn't that look nice? Looks a whole lot better. Give that a little time to dry on there. And I think I'm going to take this and clean it. On this movement, on the front plate, it's got a 359. Now I don't know what it means. These oilers, I store mine setting up like this, and they get a bubble in here, and sometimes you got to shake the heck out of it to get that bubble to go back up and let the oil start dropping. This is my original one. This one here, the name is wearing off. What you do is you push, this goes in, drops oil, and then leave it set there and it sucks it back off. At least that's what it's supposed to do. And I don't know why, but these pins are in a watch book. And you can find them online. But I don't understand why they're in a watch book, because it's got a spring in the end of this. And I would think you might damage a watch if you were to push this on there. This clock actually looks like it's been, oil's been added to it already, which, like I said, it was kind of flowed to the plate on the front anyway. And you could tell on the dial originally that it was corroded. And the corrosion was caused, I think, from the oil, not necessarily a cleaner that cleans this. So here I got the ring cleaned, polished up a little bit. And so I think I'm ready to start putting the frame back together again so I can get my movement back on here. And I guess I could put the, see how that comes off. That's why I said you have to get the minute hand on, then match the hour hand, which the hour hand, this pressure fitted, so you could set this up onto the 12, the minute hand, and the hour hand, just point it exactly at an hour. This clock doesn't have an alarm, so that doesn't matter. It's the idea of getting the minute hand and the hour hand, let's say, on time. This here I cleaned with a glass cleaner, and I had all the way around it had a ring that was corroded on there from possibly the too much oil, and I had to take a screwdriver, and you can still see a little bit there, but I had to take a screwdriver and just carefully scratch it off of there. Yes, it's porcelain. I would be afraid to be messing around anywhere around the numbers, not knowing if this was under a coating or if that's just, let's say, glued on there. There you can see what the bottom of the dial says. So I'll go ahead and put this back on and then get the framework back together again. Now just slide those taper pins in. This here was laying flat in the dish. I couldn't pick it up. I had to stick a pin in it to get it picked up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on camera or what not. Normally, it's not that hard. Normally, you're supposed to push on the minute hand. I was pushing on the gear on the inside, trying to hold that out, and I could just barely see the hole. So I was able to get it in there. And I got my hands lined up. The minute hand is the most important because you can move around that hour hand, like I said. So this is done. It's just getting the case all back together again. This has got these wires wrapped around it to hold these, either so the worker can put them on, they don't fall off, or whatever. They're on their, we'll call it solid. I gave them a light cleaning. This was a bit difficult getting on and off. I've got them stacked up like they came off, so let's say it's not confusing. And of course the small hole goes towards the front. This looks like the plate was made for a different clock also. I didn't clean this bottom one. That sticker, I don't know how long it's been on there, but I think it's kind of unique having that there. Put the lock washer on. I'm not going to put these on tight. I want to get that screw in first. So I'm missing the lock washer. There it is. It's actually not a lock washer, it's just a round piece of metal with a hole drilled in it to give it strength. I'm setting my ring on there now because it might be difficult to put it on all these screws in while it's on the frame. Now this is right at the edge. Pop this back up. Now my desk isn't level, so normally I have to put a screwdriver under the edge until this wire is in the center. This has a hole in the bottom of this, and I try to center it with that. So I'll put my screwdriver underneath here. And I'm going to set the time. And I put the glass over it So we can, going too much, I think. Oops. I don't want to do over a full circle, because I don't want to bend my spring wire. So I put the glass over it so that way when the heater kicks on or the door opens up and the wind comes through, it doesn't affect it. And this will give me a better idea. Let's see, our time's pretty close. I haven't even cleaned this glass yet. As you can see, that looks really nice now compared to what it was. Like you say, the glass is dirty. That's okay for now. And actually, I kind of like it. This is a shinier brass. That's an older brass on the pendulum and whatnot. And it actually kind of looks unique. And so you normally let it run for 24 hours, especially after you move it. You can see the pendulum's moving back and forth. It shouldn't take that long to steady, but if you're trying to set your clock to get the proper speed of the pendulum so the time is right, you should get it going, wait 24 hours, see how far it's off, if it is, and if it is, that's when you adjust the pendulum. So this clock hasn't ran 24 hours yet, and so I'm not changing the speed of it or anything because I don't know where it needs to go. But I do have another clock that has the same type of pendulum, and like I say, this one with shipping, because the shipping was free, only cost me 25 bucks. The other clock that has basically the same pendulum, the Disk Pendulum, which I was dying to get, I will admit, I had to pay $125 for it. That is, I felt, because I got this one so cheap, add the two together, and I still got a good deal. Let me check online and show you the Gustav Becker clock that they're trying to sell. This here looks like the same exact clock I got. They want $675. And $131.50 to have it shipped. I went a little fast. Like I say, it looks just like mine. Now on these clocks, your mainspring normally is what needs to be cleaned on these things. The spring right here. This clock is running, so I'm not going to mess with it. They actually have a date on there. I think that's a disc part of the pendulum, but I didn't see a date. And that key doesn't really go with the clock because it has another piece here which is normally to set the speed of a different type of clock, but at least possibly they have one that fits. So if you want to read the description of what they have on here, which they're saying it's a 1908 clock, according to the book, like I say, it says 1906. And so they can vary one way or another, I'm going to guess. Like I say, if you want to stop and stop the video and read that, you go right ahead. Their clock runs an hour fast, and evidently they don't know how to set it. I haven't read any of this myself, and so possibly they tried setting it, I'm not sure. So I hope you're staying warm. I hope you enjoyed this video and what I did to the clock, which was just actually cleaning and oiling it to make it look, let's say, new again. For 1906, it's a beautiful little clock. I do know that shining it up, or at least in my opinion, it made it look so much better. I did measure the clock just now, and from the tabletop to the top of the dome, this clock is 12 inches. Anyway, next video I do believe is going to be the clock that has the Disk Pendulum also, and the one I spent a lot more money on. But just the same, as you saw how much that one is selling for, we're going to look and see if I can find the clock that I'm going to bring up next and see what it's selling for. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe because it's free, and check out my other friends' videos here on the end here to see what their videos are like. And by the way, God bless.